Hello and welcome to the Success with Savita podcast, where we share hot tips on how to do life and business without losing your mind. I'm your host, Savita Nanjappa, entrepreneur, high-achieving 9-to-5er turned transformational success coach, helping you create a wildly successful business. Come hang out with me and other fabulous humans like you every week for stories and chats packed with a healthy dose of tips, resources, how-tos, and real talk. Side effects may include a happier and more confident you with each passing day. I live in the future. I have never been content with my code. I want to help you by mapping technology today to see tomorrow. Says my guest on today's episode, Vatsal Kanakiya. He is a principal and CTO at 100x VC, and he says this on the 100x VC website. In today's conversation, he's helping decode Web3 for us and answers my question, which is, what really is Web3? Join me as I chat with Vatsal on this episode. Hi, and welcome to the Success with Savita podcast, Vatsal. I have actually been waiting for this interview because Web3 is like this black hole for me where we know something, you hear about it a lot. So I'm very excited to talk to you. So thank you for making the time this morning to be here with me today. Welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me, Savita. It's a real pleasure to be invited here and to be speaking with you. Big fan of your work and your podcast.
Oh, wow. I mean, you made my day. With that, I want to dive in right into your work. Of course, you said that you live in the future. So who else but you to talk to us about Web3 to me, my audience? But before we go into that, I wanted to talk about your journey. What brings you to 100 VC? What's your story so far? And so to walk us through that.
Yeah, basically, right out of college, I was a great engineer. I was pretty good at code, but I realized I didn't want to do that as a job. I'd done a couple of great internships with MIT Media Labs, Morgan Stanley. So done the tech part, but was like, okay, while I enjoy this is not something I don't want that desk job of, being tuk and, kind of being pigeonholed as somebody who does only software dev. While that's a great job, that was not for me. I realized that. So, post graduation was kind of, searching around, exploring, didn't know what to do. That's when somebody gave me very sage advice, saying, okay, hey, listen, what you got to do is just find somebody who you know is successful and tell them I'm going to shadow you, right? Just do whatever they tell you, be the first in office, last out. Don't think about pay or anything. Just spend time with them, learning, observing, understanding what they do and what makes them click. And I resonated with that a lot. I think that's what today happens with all these founder office roles and stuff, right? So that's basically what I did way back. And I reached out to Sanjay Mehta, who's the founder and partner of 100x in that sense, saying, hey, I want to shadow you. And basically that's how it began. Learned investing under him, helped build out his family office in the US and then joined 100x as the CTO, and then over time into more of an investing role as principal and CTO. That's kind of broadly been my journey in a nutshell.
You make it sound so easy, but I'm sure like reaching out and doing this, you must have had a lot of challenges, ups and downs while you were going through this. Was that true that you did think about, what's going to be next, or you were just so fully in faith that I'm doing this, we'll see where it goes?
So the first year, it took me a while. Coming from an engineering background, you like building stuff. You like value creation in your head is building products. And for the first year, I'm like, okay, I'm just making money off money. What's the point of this? It's when Sanjay sent me his introduction to 100x and said, hey, can you join me in 100x along with the rest of the team, Ninad, Yagnesh, Shashank, Sanjay, and myself. That's when I really it just clicked for me. So, post that, I realized the value you can bring as an investor, right? Which is not just working with, obviously one part is kind of working with the founders and helping them build their company out and how small inputs or small things you do for them can really change the trajectory of the company. But also the fun that was there in building a fund from scratch with such a great team, right? We're thinking about distribution, we're thinking about positioning, we're thinking about communication, marketing, social, internal tech processes, internal organizational processes, everything from scratch. We're building it out together. It's like a startup itself, right? Starting the fund was like a startup itself. So, yeah, lots of ups and downs and lots of learnings. It's been a pretty great journey so far, thank God.
Awesome. And with that, let's move to our topic for the day. So tell me, Vatsal, what really is Web3 and what problems in specific is Web3 going to solve that isn't currently being solved with the current internet that we have?
So, I mean, the first thing I'll say is what's in a name, right? Web3, crypto, doesn't matter what you want to call it. It's just whatever words in right now. You want to use Web3, you want to use metaverse, you want to use crypto. In the end, I really don't care. I mean, yeah, there are lots of concepts in this space, but the basic idea is to create a trustless ecosystem for everything that is deterministic, right? What that means is everything that can be done by code, which has 100% predictable outcome, should be done by code, right? So if you think about it, everything, almost everything in the payments ecosystem, right, should is deterministic. If I'm sending money to you, Savita, I know exactly how much. If I'm paying for a service, then how much TDS should be cut. Or if you're charging me GST, what's the GST? Everything is deterministic. So it should be done by code, but especially when you're doing international payments, there's a lot of human in the loop. There's multiple banks, and that's not wrong, but it's just inefficient, right? So that is kind of the core of how I think of it. But the idea is also to kind of not try to replace what already exists, but to create a parallel online world. When I we can talk about this as the questions evolve, which can act as a POC of a digital economy, of an economy which is completely digital and run deterministically through code and still functions just as well as a real world economy. So the basic funda here, though, is everything that is deterministic, everything that can be written in code should be written in code, and it should be you should be able to run it trustlessly without having to trust an individual, without having to trust servers. Only thing you trust is code. You can read the code and you know exactly what it's going to do. There's no fuzziness, or there's no improbability or probability of anything going wrong, kind of thing. It's a clear 0 or 1 outcome, right? There's no gray zones.
All right. Okay. So then crypto and Web3, you're saying is kind of the same, but not really the same.
So, okay. See, in the end, all of these terms tend to be largely for marketing. So it doesn't matter what I call them, and definitions are vague. There's no central authority. There's no trustless authority who's set a definition, or a trusted authority who's set a definition. Here's how I think of it, right? Maybe I'll give you a brief on my thesis on how the world's gonna evolve. We have to think of crypto as sort of monopoly money. When you have monopoly, you've played the game Monopoly, right? Or business. So when you have cash in Monopoly, you use it to buy property in Monopoly, you pay rent in Monopoly, you build houses in Monopoly. That's what it is, right? So the thing with Ethereum or Bitcoin or any other crypto coins, the way I think of it is we should not be talking about real world use cases or creating rewards or payments in the real world just yet. I don't think we're ready. I think we should think of it as monopoly money, where there's a separate digital economy and people live, breathe, eat, whatever, do a lot of things online. And I use my Ethereum to buy services, I give services online which help me earn Ethereum. And that kind of creates a multi-trillion dollar online economy, which is thriving on its own, lots of productivity happening online. So that's kind of where I see the world going. And everything happens on chain. What does that mean? Right? So you have to think about Ethereum or Bitcoin as basically a large decentralized Turing complete computer. What does that mean? It's a large computer which can basically compute anything you can do in a regular computer, but it's online and it's not a single processor. It's like millions of processors around the world contributing and collaborating together to do those computations. And it's only limited by your imagination, right? So if you think about it, finance is also in general limited only by your imagination. Similarly, anything you want to build on the decentralized Turing complete computer, that is Ethereum or Bitcoin, is only limited by your imagination, right? So what happens is, what's happening already is people are embedding physics and game engines, rendering programs on top of blockchains, right? So imagine you have one chain with a common set of physics, right? Okay, this is how things collide, this is the speed of light, this is how the world looks, etc. Now, on the same chain, you can build multiple games. You build Mario, you build Sonic, you build, whatever other games, right? What happens is, because they're all on the same physics, the same game engine, the core logic is the same, right? What happens is your assets in each are interoperable, right? So you can have Mario from this game play here and then go to Sonic and actually play in Sonic as well. And then if you want them to play Prince of Persia or Aladdin, they can play that as well, as long as it's on the same chain. Now, if you have Modern Warfare and Halo, two gun shooting games on the same chain, you can use a gun from Modern Warfare in Halo. Doesn't matter. So that leads to kind of an interoperability, right? So just as an example, what I'm trying to say is, what's going to happen and what's already happening is there's projects like Topology, GG Lattice, XYZ, Dopeforce that are doing this, where with this common set of physics, you're going to have a real open world, right? It's like in our universe, you have a set of rules of physics that are standard, right? The speed of light is only this and this, it's 300,000 meters per second. It's immutable, right? So similarly, on chain, it's a universe where the speed of or the physics are immutable, right? So any games or any open worlds built on top are all interoperable as long as they're built on the same chain, right? So that way you have a lot of open space online and different experiences on the same chain that a user can have. Now you can have social media experiences, you can work in companies, you can play games, you can watch movies, whatever, right? That's the metaverse concept, except it's different from the whole 3D AR, VR concept that everybody's shilling right now. This is kind of a lot more technical, building on chain, but that's what's happening. So that's how that world gives the opportunity to create a really on-chain digital economy, right? Where I'm spending time in multiple worlds, I'm meeting friends, I'm spending on items, I'm earning on-chain, I'm enjoying different services, I'm buying different assets, everything on chain, right? And what's going to happen is 20, 30 years down, this is going to be like a 10, 15, $20 trillion GDP just online on chain, right? Different services created, different assets sold, whatever. And that's not from a point of view of saying, okay, that's supposed to change the real world, right? It's just from a point of view of creating a third place, right? Kind of a second place or a third place for people to go when they're fed up with the real world. So that's kind of how things are evolving. And that's the broader idea of what I see is happening technologically and where we're heading.
Yeah. I think you explain it really well. And talking about getting fed up of the real world, I think that's like already happening. Everyone's like online, everyone's doing all kinds of things. I see my kid playing Roblox and I'm like, what's going on?
That's exactly what it is, right? See, Roblox, he probably earns Robux and he spends it for building games or buying assets or whatever, right? That's basically what's happening, except it's all on chain. And when he earns on Robux on Roblox, he can actually use it in Fortnite as well. And all characters he's built on Roblox, he can move it to Fortnite and it'll be open world. That's basically what it is, but for adults, right? It's starting off as a concept for kids, but everybody who's currently on Roblox and on Fortnite are going to move into adulthood soon. And for them, they're going to need a different platform. And these are the worlds that are going to happen. They're going to be strongly on chain. They're going to be completely on chain.
Okay, so that's interesting. And you touched upon, of course, metaverse, but which I also want to touch upon. So this is something that I've read while trying to read up about Web3 myself online. Metaverse and Web3, they say, is used interchangeably as interchangeable terms, but they're actually kind of different. For our audience, is it really? I mean, is there a difference you see, or you feel it's the same?
I don't like getting into terminology, names, definitions. It's all very theoretical. I just know the world I want to see, right? I know I want to see a digital economy which is completely separate from the physical economy. What's going to happen is my identity, my personality, my activities in real life are going to be very different to what my identity, activities, and interests are online. And it's already happening, right? So much of our time we spend online on Instagram, on Reddit, different communities, and we behave differently in different places, right? We behave differently online because there are some social expectations on how we behave. But then when we're online, maybe on Reddit or on Facebook groups, if you're anonymous, especially, or in different usernames, you're behaving very differently. You have different interests. And actually, this is kind of part of my thesis, right? Which is that everything social on the internet is either going to be algorithmic or it's going to be community driven, right? So either very few people will want to reflect their IRL in real life social graphs online, right? Most people either want the algorithmic front where, okay, just let like TikTok, right? Just keep showing me, or Insta Reels showing me content that you recommend, or it's going to be community driven where it's a bunch of people gathering around a common interest, right? Or a bunch of common interests. So that community driven part, right, which is already what you're seeing in Roblox or Fortnite or with those kids, right? It's an emergent behavior. And that's kind of what's going to translate into the future, into the metaverse, as you might call it, right? The basic funda is it's all interoperable, it all ties in together. You can't kind of tear it apart into individual things and say, oh no, the blockchain is important, or crypto is important, or the metaverse is important. They all come together for me. They have to all succeed in order for the grander vision to succeed. Just one succeeding doesn't work, kind of thing.
Like what you hear so far? Make sure you never miss a show by clicking the subscribe button now. Stay tuned as we take a quick break, and we'll see you on the other side of the show. All right. So I think, I hear what you're saying. It's all interlinked. So there's no point having these different names and trying to understand, define this and define this and define this. They're all part of the same universe at this time. So I don't know if this is the right question to ask, but so what are going to be some key advantages or disadvantages as we move into this, as we move a lot of our stuff into this third universe, right? Or Web3? What do you think are going to be the advantages and disadvantages?
Yeah, I think obviously you're not limited by geography anymore when you're online. Your friends are going to you across the board. You only need a computer and access to internet, and you can have that already happens. But in the current sense, you can still be censored by the country you live in. If you're living in authoritarian state, thankfully we don't, but if you're living in authoritarian states, right, they turn off your internet any day or prevent you from seeing certain sites or accessing something, right? When you're in that larger world, I mean, how are they going to prevent you from reading information they don't want you to read, right? So that access to information and access to knowledge, and it just becomes a much more open world for everybody, right? So that's kind of one of those benefits. But also, what I see is it allows people, I believe it's good for us because it will allow us to kind of live multiple lives. A lot of the times you see a bunch of regrets that, oh, I imagine if I was this, right? And people already do this. They play Sims as adults or whatever, just to kind of imagine what their life would be if they'd done something differently. It's a simulation of what could have been. But in this case, you can actually really make it. And there'll be, for example, let's say I always wanted to be a journalist, right? On that online universe, there's going to be an organization where I can start contributing as a journalist wherever I want. I write about on chain events. As and when my articles or whatever I'm writing get hits, I'm incentivized basis my performance, right? So I'm paid in Ethereum. If my article goes high, I get governance tokens so that if I'm performing really well, I can actually contribute to the organization and take part in the decision making on the organization. Obviously, my performance is time bound. So if I've done something, very good over the last couple of weeks, the governance powers that I'm getting for maybe a year after my performance, right? After which that fades away. But what I'm trying to tell you is I can live those alternative versions of my explore a lot more in different things. It's open, there's no gatekeeping. You can do whatever you want, right? Because it's an online world. It's only limited by your imagination, like I said. And you can actually make a living off of it. You can make money off of it, right? And I think that's really valuable. And there'll be much lesser on that world. The way the companies will be structured or organizations will be structured or incentives will be structured will allow for a lot more equity in terms of well distribution, right? There's no rent seeking behavior online, right? It's because it's deterministic who performs well, who doesn't. In most cases, it is deterministic. So you just, as long as you perform well, you get the right incentives, right? And you to do better. So that's what it looks like.
Okay. All right. So with that, I want to ask you, like, when you're seeing a lot of people online are working on Web3 projects, right? So what's Web3 industry in India looking like? What are some key things that India is doing as we move into this? Or it's just going to be like everything, the whole world is doing the same thing?
Yeah, I think, no, I think there's a lot of solid developer talent out of India, and it's growing rapidly, the dev user base, the dev base. So I'm meeting so many smart devs every single day. I'm meeting like engineers from large companies like Uber, Amazon, who just decide, oh, I want to shift. And they're taking the toughest problems. It's not like, they're even going for the easy part. They're going for the toughest parts of this industry, right? Like ZK proofs, ZK EVMs, building on top of those. And it's a real shift in developer talent. So India is definitely, at least on the developer front, adopting the space very well. So we're going to be at the forefront of building the space out. On the company front, I think we're still learning what works, what doesn't work. And that's true about the whole world, right? Everybody's still building their thesis on what the space actually looks like. My thesis is that it has to be strongly on chain, but not everybody thinks about it that way. Some, like, there'll be big Bitcoin maximalists who believe only Bitcoin's the right way to go, and we should already start pushing for usage of Bitcoin in the real world. There's a bunch of other chains and people who support those. So a lot of different views, and there's no real consensus as to how the world will evolve. And so India itself, builders in India are all figuring out. It'll take time, 10, 20 years, but we'll know what the journey will look like. We'll know what it eventually will be. But very bullish on India. We have some of the smartest people here building for the space. So very, very excited.
Yeah. I do want to ask you this. I know you've touched upon what it looks like, but I want to ask you, are there some specific examples of already that we all know of where Web3 is kind of already being used?
So it's a consistent evolution. there's a bunch of projects you may not even like. Okay, you have to think about it this way, right? There's so many millions of projects, not millions, but thousands, tens of thousands, if not hundreds, of dApps out there on the Ethereum ecosystem right now. Quite a few of them have reached and created a lot of value for millions of users. It's just that we may not have been touched by them yet, right? It's typically for the more savvier users who know how the space works a lot better. For example, there are DeFi protocols, right? So DeFi primitives like lending online, right? So there's something like Aave or Compound or many others, which basically say, okay, we have this whole pool of money from which you can lend, but you have to put collateral. So I put in one Bitcoin and I get maybe half an Ethereum or whatever, right? Or two Ethereum, whatever the rate is, as a loan, and it's backed by my Bitcoin as collateral. There are protocols that are already doing this, and people take a lot of loans. At its peak, it had almost 80 billion, $85 billion of value locked, right? That's the value of the loans kind of given out, which is kind of crazy, right? Similarly, you have automated market makers, which are creating these exchanges, right? Decentralized exchanges without an order book system. So generally, exchanges have order books, right? Where somebody puts in a buy order, somebody puts in a sell order, and then they're matched. In this case, they have an existing liquidity pool, and pricing is set basis supply demand. So you don't have to wait for somebody to sell. When you want to buy, you just put in the order and they gave it from an existing liquidity pool. And basis what the supply is, they set a price for you, right? And so lots of cool stuff happening on the DeFi front. There's a lot of GameFi companies, but these are not yet strongly on chain, X Infinity, etc. But on chain games, we're now seeing companies like Dope Wars, Lattice XYZ, Zero X Spark come up with strongly on-chain games. Dark Forest Teeth has been one of the best POCs yet, and I think that's changing it. So we're evolving, learning every day. There's so much innovation happening every single day, and it's really tough to keep track of. But it's like the EV adoption, right? You won't even realize, and it'll happen right in front of you. If you notice, like suddenly, I live in Bombay, so suddenly, like post COVID 2 years, suddenly I'm seeing, okay, all the buses are electric in Bombay, and I'm seeing like 5, 6 cars a day which are electric. And I won't notice in a couple years, it'll be every single car is electric. We won't even know it, right? It's kind of like that. It'll happen slowly and then all at once, and you won't even realize it.
Okay, so that's positive for people like us because then it's not like you have to gear up and you have to prepare, right? But also, I mean, the conversation's been so fascinating. Now, my question for you is, as we move into this, like this thing that's coming, everybody needs to kind of, figure out what they need to do in terms of skill sets. Should people actually learn? Developers need to learn how to like for Web3. Is there like a learning that they should invest in? What's your recommendation?
Yes, yes, yes. I think having a thesis around where the space is going. See, okay, just kind of to set a broader concept, right? The trouble I see with the ecosystem right now is most people come in with the expectation of fiat gains, right? Okay, I'm going to make money in rupee. That's where my thesis is that it has to be monopoly money, right? It should not be. I'm not expecting, or I'm not coming in this space because I want to earn in rupees, right? Okay, I'll buy Ethereum today and I'll make a profit in Ethereum tomorrow. But I want to do because I believe Ethereum has utility in that online world. Right? So I'm never thinking about off ramping myself. That's what really drives value. And the other part is people have to transact. So I think on the developer front, having a thesis on that front, on how the world will evolve, and is it only about fiat gains, monetary gains, or is it about something beyond that, is very critical. But obviously you need to kind of educate yourself on a bunch of things, on writing great dApps, how to kind of build it out, how to make sure the security of the dApps are great. So there's a bunch of tools that are out there which allow for auditing security of the code you're writing. Very, very important, especially since these are financial kind of tools and products being built, right? You have to be up to date with kind of latest technology. So for now, I would say devs need to focus a lot on learning the math behind CK, zero knowledge proofs and zero knowledge rollups, and how to build on top of zero knowledge EVMs, because that's a real paradigm shift, right? Kind of it's gonna change everything. The next bull cycle is happening because ZK EVMs built by Polygon, built by Starknet, etc., by Optimism are coming in, and they're just increasing the scalability and the computational power of blockchains. Right? They're just changing the paradigm of what can and what cannot be achieved on chain. So, yeah, that's what I would kind of push developers to learn.
Start learning, yeah. And for businesses, how do you recommend businesses stay ahead of the curve as this is coming? Or is it like you said, it's going to be gradual? It's not like this massive change that you have to prepare for. How do businesses kind of, what's your recommendation?
I don't think IRL, I don't think in real world businesses need to care about it. Again, like I said, my thesis is everything has to be on chain, everything has to be online. So as long as you're a real world business, you're not going to be affected for at least 20, 25, 30 years. Like, I don't believe this is not my thesis. They're not gonna like crypto and all. I don't believe it should be used at that level yet. I think businesses can kind of take a chill pill on that front. If you are an online business, you can kind of think about how to kind of transition into that strongly on-chain mode, how to kind of build an equivalent to your business, your services on-chain. But again, like I said, it has to be strongly on-chain. Otherwise, it's like as long as you're IRL, it doesn't matter. But if you want to be completely online and you want to be strongly on-chain, then it's worth studying and doing something to be part of it.
Okay. I have a different question then. You're in the startup space. So maybe existing businesses, you don't see them needing to do this change. But what if, I want to like start a business inside this space, right? Are there when is the right time? Should I start thinking right now, come up with ideas? Like, is there opportunity over there you see?
There's a lot of opportunity for sure. The way I think about this is the company is not the product on chain. What happens in the real world is the company is the product, right? Freshworks owns Freshdesk, right? They can't just give up on it. It's their cash cow. It's where they make money. It's the product that they keep selling, right? It's not. That's not how it's going to be on chain. Once you created as a company, once you created a project which is on chain, you see it become a little successful. There's a bunch of users, there's an active, engaged community. Then you just kind of hand over governance to the community, right? And then it's up to you whether you want to keep contributing as part of the governance ecosystem of the community or not, if you want to keep contributing liquidity pools, whatever, or if you want to pull out of the project altogether. There's no right or wrong, but the project, once it's at a particular scale, will be handed over to the community. So the company doesn't rent seek from a particular product, right? Because I built this, I should get 2% of all transactions for lifetime. No, that doesn't happen. As long as the company is actually contributing to the project as liquidity pools, so as customer support, in whatever manner, and by building a client for it, they'll get incentivized by the community, right? But once they stop engaging, the community will push them out, say, hey, we're not going to pay you or give you any incentives. So the every company can build multiple projects, right? And there'll be a change of positioning every time. So today, Savita, you're building an AMM, you're building a DeFi protocol, you're building an AMM. You've built it, you've scaled it, it's got millions of dollars locked. But the company is now looking to build something different. It wants to build strongly on-chain games. You want to build different project, go for it, right? You can also parallelly contribute to that AMM, maybe provide a bit of liquidity pool passively while you're building on a different project. Right? That's completely fine. So that's where it is, right? So companies don't have to think that if I'm building something today, it's going to be something I'm going to be tied to for years on years, right? For building a project and scale it up, I get a certain reward, a lump sum reward initially as a bunch of tokens of that particular project, governance or otherwise. But that's about it. Post that, if I want to earn more or make more from that project, I have to keep contributing. So that company has the option that if I want to abandon the project, not abandon in the sense let it die, but give it over to a community and move on to other project. The company can do that. Right? So companies will have a lot more optionality on what they want to build and what they want to scale. So they're not never limited कि okay मैंने ये एक चीज बनाया तो now अभी यही करना है, right? 5 years I built one thing, great. Now the company goes on and does something else, right? Completely fine. That's kind of how I think of it.
But very interesting way to construct business in this world, I have to say. And I think it's really going to, I mean, the way we do it today versus where the way it's going to happen tomorrow, starting and growing a business over there is going to be, I think, very different. So yeah, I can't wait to see what's to unfold. As we come to the end of this interview, I want to bring it back to you. What does a day in your life look like? Tell us about.
This is a bunch of meetings. That's basically what it is. I moved to Bangalore recently, and I've just been trying to kind of meet as many new people as possible. Founders, builders, marketeers. I don't care. I just want to meet interesting people. That's what I'm here for. That's basically what it looks like. Last 3 days, I've basically been in home only for like sleep, right? The morning I leave 10 a.m. and then I come back 11 p.m. after meeting a bunch of people. And that's actually how a VC's life should be, right? It's not supposed to be a desk job. It's supposed to be an IRL in-person kind of job. And I'm enjoying it so far. But obviously beyond that, I have a lot of desk work as well. So spend a bunch of my time evaluating startups that have emailed me or have applied to 100x in an inbound manner and getting on calls with them and so on and so forth. So, I mean, no day, thankfully for me, no 2 days look the same. Every day is a challenge and a unique experience on its own. And I'm really grateful for that.
Yeah. And you don't want it to look the same, I would presume. Right. Okay. And with that, you spend so much time evaluating startups, working with them. What's one piece of advice you would give to somebody who is just starting out, has an idea, wants to get funding?
You just have a clear hypothesis of what you want to do. I think it's very easy to be distracted. Just like I, as a VC today, have been talking about, oh, there's going to be so many different things. You, as an entrepreneur, should not be talking about there's going to be so many different things, right? You should be talking about the pinpoint solution you want to build. You have to let us imagine the larger world around it, right? So have a very focused hypothesis in terms of what service you want to do, in terms of what audience you want to target, what geography. Have a very focused approach initially when you're pitching to us. And secondly, make sure this is a business where you want venture funding. Not all businesses are meant to be venture funded. It is okay if your business is not venture fundable. That doesn't make it a bad business, right? There's a difference between owning 10% of $100 million company or 100% of a $10 billion company. In the end, you're going to make the same amount of money. Your wealth is the same, right? It's just up to you how you want to take your journey forward. So just make sure, because venture funding is like a very different ball game. So make sure it's for you before you apply for venture funding.
Okay. And one last question. What stands out to you when people reach out to you about when they're pitching their business? What's
Clarity of thought. It comes to the same thing, right? We invest idea stage and up at 100x. So what is really sexy to us is having a very focused hypothesis, clarity of thought. That's what helps us invest at the idea stage, right? You're all over the place. You want to do 20 different things. I mean, we don't know where our money is going to go, right? We don't know what you're using our money for. When you have a focused hypothesis, we know exactly what experiments you're going to run to validate that hypothesis, and hence we know where the money is going to go. And as long as we believe the hypothesis is valuable, we're going to invest, right? Kind of thing. So, clarity of thought is underrated, focus is underrated. It's very sexy though. Be very focused, have a real clarity of thought, and it'll help you raise your check.
Right. On that note, for the audience listening in, you know what appeals to Vatsal and team. So if you guys are wanting to pitch to 100x, then come with clarity of thought, obviously. And with that, Vatsal, thank you so much for your time. I think it's not a dark hole anymore. You made it quite simple and you made it feel like, you don't need to like really freak out about it right now. So thank you for that. We look forward to supporting you and cheering you on and cheering all businesses on. So thank you for your time today.
Thank you so much, Savita, for your time. Have a great day.
Thank you for listening to the podcast. If you like this episode and you want more, you can go to the show notes on my website, which is successwithsavita.com/podcast. If you like what you've heard so far, I would be grateful to you if you could leave me a 5-star review, subscribe to this podcast, and share with a friend who may find this useful. You can also follow me on my Instagram at Success with Savita and DM me any questions you may have, and I will be happy to answer them for you. Until the next episode, believe in yourself and all the best to your success.